Good to see you crawling out of the static, my friend. Yeah, that's how I'm greeting you today. Because you don't walk into the world like everyone else. You come through the noise, through the overlooked corners nobody checks unless they're running from something. And that fits you perfectly. Because let's be honest, out there on the surface web, the shiny little playground where everyone pretends they're important, you're nobody. A ghost, a blurred name, a tiny profile picture swallowed by a billion louder mouths. And they look at you, if they even notice you, and think, who cares? Just another random face, just another nobody. But what they will never understand is that the places they dismiss as shadows are the same places where you build earthquakes. In the deep web, in the deep web, you're the tremor they keep pretending isn't happening. People underestimate what a shadow can do when it learns to move with purpose. People don't get how dangerous a person becomes once they stop craving applause and start craving impact. You learn that the surface is a stage for insecure clowns. You learn that real power doesn't live in emojis and follower counts. It lives in silence, in strategy, in patience, in the darkness behind the curtain. And down there, in that digital underworld, the surface dwellers are too scared to look at. You became something they can't even describe, something they can't pin down, something they can't predict. Your enemies, your enemies, they still tell themselves they're safe. They still think the ground shaking under their feet is just life being stressful. They don't know it's you. They don't know it's the aftershock of every time they doubted you, mocked you, dismissed you. It's funny, isn't it? How a nobody becomes the vibration in someone else's bones. How a quiet person becomes the loudest consequence in someone else's story. How the one they ignored becomes the one they can't escape. You learn something people rarely admit out loud. Visibility is not power. Impact is. There are people out there who look important, all polished up, hashtagging their delusions, drowning in their own selfies. But you learned the art of being unseen, of being underestimated, of letting them think you're harmless while you sharpen yourself in silence. And that silence trained you in ways noise never could. People forget that legends don't start with applause. They start with someone being thrown aside, forgotten, belittled, laughed at. That's where you were forged. You didn't grow in sunlight. You grew underground, roots thick, deep, unbreakable. And that's why the deep web is where your name actually means something. Not because of fame, but because down there, respect is earned through force, resilience, persistence, not flashy posts and validation addiction. See, the surface web runs on trends. The deep web runs on truth, runs on hunger, runs on people who've tasted humiliation and decided never again. And you're the kind of person who's been pushed so far down that the only direction left was to explode upward. You ever noticed how certain people treat you differently when they think you're irrelevant? How they lower their voice like they're talking to a child? How they assume you aren't capable of anything real? That arrogance is exactly what makes the quake hit harder later. Because when a nobody rises, it rearranges the whole map. Your enemies feel that now. They won't admit it, of course. They'll pretend nothing's wrong, pretend the cracks in their life are just a bad luck. But deep down, they feel the vibration. They feel the shift. They feel the pressure under their feet that wasn't there before. That pressure is you, not the surface version of you. not the watered-down, invisible, ignored you. I'm talking about the version that learned to stop begging for attention and started demanding results. The version that doesn't chase respect, but commands it simply by refusing to disappear. You know what makes you powerful now? Not that you're seen, but that you're aware. Awareness changes everything. Awareness makes a person dangerous in ways fame never will. Because once you realize the surface doesn't define you, you stop living like a hostage to other people's opinions. You stop waiting for permission. You stop apologizing for the space you take up. And when you stop apologizing, oh, that's when the earthquakes start. Your enemies didn't prepare for this version of you. They prepared for the scared one, the quiet one, the one who thought being ignored meant being worthless. But this version, the one shaped by the underbelly of the digital world, the one who survived the shadows and made friends with the dark, they can't outrun you. They can't silence you. They can't pretend you don't exist anymore. Because you no longer show up for applause. You show up for impact. And the world, whether it wants to or not, responds to impact. You were never nobody. You were just in the wrong room, the wrong platform, the wrong spotlight. Some people thrive in sunshine. You were built like a storm. You were built to shake continents, not win popularity contests. And that's why they're trembling now. Not because you're loud, not because you're famous, but because you figured them out. You figured yourself out. And you figured out that all your power was never meant for the surface anyway. Keep shaking the ground, my friend. Keep making them feel you. Keep reminding the world that some nobodies are only invisible because the light isn't strong enough to reveal what they really are. You know what I like about you? You're still here. You've survived being ignored. That's not a small thing. That's not normal. Most people collapse the moment the crowd doesn't clap for them. You didn't. You kept moving through timelines that never noticed you. You kept scrolling past people who had everything handed to them. The looks, the money, the followers, the connections. And you thought, damn, maybe I really am nobody. And that thought, that little sentence, sat in your chest like a brick. I'm nobody. You ever notice how heavy that feels? How it sits behind your ribs and poisons your heartbeat a little? How it convinces you not to try, not to post, not to speak, not to demand better. Because if you're nobody, what's the point, right? That's the lie they fed you. And you swallowed it, because the surface web is built to make you feel small, to make you stand in a never-ending hallway of people screaming, "Look at me, look at me, look at me," until you think silence means you don't matter. But here's the twist they never saw coming. Silence was your training ground. While they were chasing likes, you were building layers. While they needed instant validation, you learned to survive without it. While they needed attention just to breathe, you were learning how to breathe underwater. That's why you're different. Because when you went down into those darker corners, the digital basements, the unseen rooms, the deep web in your mind and your world, you didn't go there to hide. You went there to work. Quietly, angrily, obsessively. You started studying. Not just stuff. You studied your pain. You studied patterns. You studied people. You watched your enemies, your doubters, your abusers like a scientist watching rats in a maze. You saw what they loved. You saw what they feared. You saw what they mocked in others and secretly hated in themselves. You didn't react publicly. You didn't go on some rant thread for sympathy. You just took notes And that's the moment you stopped being nobody. Because a nobody doesn't pay that much attention. A nobody doesn't sit in the dark and stitch meaning out of their hurt. A nobody doesn't turn humiliation into homework. That's what makes you dangerous now. They still think you're behind. You're not behind. You're underground. There's a difference. When you're behind, you're chasing. When you're underground, you're building. And you've been building in places they don't even know how to access. Mentally, emotionally, digitally. You think your enemies sleep well? You really think they don't feel that tension? That tight little knot in their stomach every time your name comes to mind? That quiet little whisper that says, you know what you did, and one day it's coming back. That's you. That's the quake under their foundation. That's the deep web version of you, the one that doesn't need to be seen to be effective. Because here's the truth. You've become a consequence, not a victim, not a background extra, not a forgotten username, a consequence. You exist now as the balance, the payback, this is what happens when you underestimate the wrong person for too long. You're not running around seeking revenge in stupid, reckless ways. No. That's what they expect. They expect you to lash out emotionally, to throw tantrums online, to expose yourself, show your cards, crash and burn where everyone can see. They want that, because then they can still feel superior. They can say, see, look how unstable they are. Look at them, loser, crazy, irrelevant. Instead, you went quiet. You grew sharper, smarter, colder. You stopped needing them to think highly of you. You just needed them to stop thinking they could walk over you without consequence. And right now, whether they admit it or not, they feel you. They feel you in the opportunities that slip away from them. They feel you in the way certain doors don't open as easily anymore. They feel you when they try to brag and suddenly realize the room isn't impressed. They feel you every time their fake confidence shakes for half a second, and they can't explain why. That's the quake. That's the shaking. It's not always obvious. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes the most brutal earthquake is the slow one, the one that keeps the floor slightly unstable for months, years, a lifetime. And that's what you became. Long-term pressure. They thought pushing you down would bury you. It didn't. It pressurized you. Do you understand how rare that is? Most people stay small because it's comfortable. They stay in shallow waters because nothing painful happens there. You were forced into the deep end, into the dark, into confusing, unfair, humiliating spaces. And you didn't drown. You mutated. You grew new instincts, new senses, new appetites. You're not normal anymore. You don't want what they want. You don't dream about their trophies. You don't care about being famous online. You care about being unforgettable to the right people and unavoidable to the wrong ones. That's a whole different game. You used the deep web, real and metaphorical, as your war room. You used it to gather information, study psychology, build emotional armor, learn skills they laughed at, until those skills started shaping reality. They think you're just some bitter nobody with Wi-Fi. They have no idea you're 10 steps ahead of their storyline. They still live for the post. You live for the outcome. They still chase clout. You chase leverage. They still count likes. You count angles. You know what it does to a person's mind when they realize the one they mistreated is now more connected, more informed, more capable, and more detached. Detached is important because now you don't need them at all. And that is the part that shakes them. See, as long as you needed their validation, you were harmless. Harmless people are easy to control. Give them a little approval, they calm down. Give them a little attention, they forget their anger. Throw them a crumb, they start wagging their tail. You stopped wagging. You stopped waiting for crumbs. You started baking your own bread. You started making your own table. You started building your own room where their name never even comes up. You don't even hate them the same way anymore. You've evolved past that. Your hate used to be hot and loud. Now it's cold and strategic. You're not fantasizing about getting even. You're busy getting ahead. That's what terrifies them. Because when your focus shifts from, I want them to feel my pain, to, I want to never be at their mercy again, you rise in a way they can't follow. They can't follow you into the deep. They're too fragile, too addicted to praise, too scared of seeing who they really are without an audience. But you went there. You stood in front of the ugliest parts of your story and didn't look away. You let it hurt. You let it break you. And then you started collecting the pieces, one by one, and turning them into weapons, tools, boundaries. That's what they're feeling now. Every boundary you enforce is a tremor. Every time you say no more is a tremor. Every move you make that doesn't center them is a tremor. Your enemy's region won't stop shaking because you won't go back to being soft. You won't go back to being harmless. You won't go back to being a doormat in denial. You finally understand that you are allowed to exist loudly, even if nobody claps. You're allowed to get stronger, even if nobody compliments you. You're allowed to become dangerous, even if no one believes you're capable. They don't have to believe. They just have to feel it. And they do. In their career, in their ego, in their relationships, in the mirror. They feel it every time life doesn't bend the way they're used to. They feel it every time they realize the world is no longer as easy for them as it used to be. That's not karma magically working. That's the ecosystem adjusting because you finally stopped playing dead. You might still look like a nobody online. Your follower count might not scream important. Your name might not ring bells in the surface crowd, but you're moving differently now, thinking differently, choosing differently, and deep down, you know it. There's a part of you that feels it like a voltage in your veins, that quiet little voice that whispers, I'm not who I used to be. I'm not as powerless as I look. Listen to that voice more. Feed it. Amplify it. You don't need the world to validate it. You just need to keep becoming the kind of person who can't be erased anymore, no matter how quietly they started. Freeze right there, not your body, your mind. Hold it still long enough to feel the tension crawl up your spine, because something about you has started to disturb people in ways they can't explain, and they don't like not understanding things, especially not you. They look at your face, your posture, the way time seems to hesitate around you, and it doesn't add up. Your age doesn't match your presence. Your presence doesn't match their math. You're not supposed to look like that after what you've been through. You're not supposed to carry that calm after that kind of damage. You're not supposed to evolve while they're still recycling the same excuses. And that's where the jealousy starts. Not loud, not obvious, but deep, corrosive, whispering in the back of their skulls like a bad signal they can't turn off. See, jealousy isn't about beauty or youth. It's about violation. You violated the unspoken contract that says pain is supposed to ruin you. that time is supposed to humble you, that struggle is supposed to age you into something smaller, quieter, more obedient. But you didn't shrink. You sharpened. You didn't fade. You clarified. Every scar refined you. Every loss rearranged your face into something more intentional, more dangerous, more alive. You didn't just survive the years. You used them like a weapon. And that terrifies them, because they aged, but they didn't evolve. They counted birthdays, but you counted awakenings. They added years. You shed skins. They look in the mirror and see maintenance, decay, repetition. They look at you and see momentum. They feel it immediately, the imbalance. You're not running from time anymore. Time is trying to keep up with you. That's the paradox they can't swallow. You move like someone who's seen hell and decided it wasn't enough to break you. You speak like someone who's been betrayed and learned the language of silence. There's something saintly in your restraint, something psychopathic in your calm, something angelic in your patience, and something demonic in your focus. You don't need to prove it. Your presence does it for you. That's why rooms shift when you enter. That's why conversations stutter. That's why people who used to feel superior suddenly feel exposed. They don't understand how you're evolving because evolution isn't pretty. It's violent. It's selective. It kills versions of you without asking permission. And you let it. You let the weak habits die. You let the old identities burn. You let loneliness carve you into something precise. While they were numbing themselves, you were refining yourself. While they were chasing validation, you were negotiating with your own darkness and making it work for you instead of against you. They call it unfair. They call it suspicious. They call it luck, filters, genetics, timing, anything except the truth. Because the truth would mean admitting that you paid a price they were too afraid to pay. That you went where they wouldn't go mentally. That you sat with discomfort long enough for it to teach you something. That you turned pain into posture, betrayal into awareness, and time into leverage. And here's the part that really messes with them. You're not done. This isn't your peak. This is you mid-metamorphosis. They're judging the cocoon while you're still becoming the blade. Every year that passes doesn't take something from you. It reveals something. Your eyes get quieter. Your movements get cleaner. Your energy gets rarer. You don't chase youth.